your other pleasant experiences, your pleasant memories of Beavertown.
Our education was largely basic.
R, and R.
Oh, yes, and it was well taught. Reading was well taught. It was taught the right way. The first 3 years, children were largely read to.
Read to.
Read to. And we didn't start silent reading until in 4th grade, never. Always oral.
Was this McGuffey discipline that you're referring to now? What? Was it the McGuffey readers, the text?
No, we didn't have McGuffey readers, but we had excellent readers. And and mathematics was taught properly. And history was well taught, and geography was well taught here in the school that I attended. Just as well as they teach it now anywhere. Just as well. Maybe better.
Fundamentally, as in football, you've got to master the fundamentals before you can execute complex plays, and in education, you've got to master the fundamentals before anything else.
I learned that as a football coach. And I learned another thing. You have to be an absolute dictator when you coach a football team. And I guess if you went to Johnstown and asked people, they'd tell you that I was a dictator in the school program because I wanted it my way. Had to be my way.
Well, that's what all leadership, if of course the term dictator here may be a bit harsh.
Yeah.
I don't think...
No, was I disliked? Well, I stayed there from 29 to 54, so I hung on pretty good.
Well, I've been in executive capacities myself, and I was never regarded as a dictator, but I think getting back to the word dictator, which future generations may think of as Adolf Hitler and that sort of thing, I think what we might say is disciplinarian.
Well, that's what mine was.
Yeah, you were a disciplinarian. There were rules and there were regulations, and you insisted, you lived by them, and you felt, therefore, that everyone else should live by them to have a proper society.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's far from a dictatorship.
No, I think getting back to this community, I think it was an excellent community. There was, we never heard of episodes of immorality. We had some drunkenness, mostly around some of the old Civil War veterans.
Like Coon Hooven.
Yes, like Coon Hooven and old Sim Spaced was one.
Did he have a leg or an arm missing? Mr.
Yes,
Spade?
he had an arm missing. Had an arm shot off at Gettysburg. There were a number, but Mr. Faust.
William Faust?
The hotel...
Central Hotel proprietor.
Proprietor was a gentleman, and when a man had enough to drink, that's all he got. And there were a lot of people he wouldn't sell any to. Coon Hooven couldn't buy any here.
He had to go to Beaver Springs.
He had to go to Beaver Springs to get it. Couldn't buy any here. And
well, the community was essentially very moral. We know that there was virtually no crime record. We do have some robberies on record, but very few.
Very few.
And the people were family-oriented, school-oriented, church-oriented, and they still are largely.
Now yes, there are some reasons for some change. When I was a child, it was not a mobile society. Middleburg was a tremendous distance from Beaverton. People just didn't go to Middleburg. They had no way. They had train, but...
And that required some extra preparation.
Yeah, so we were not a mobile. Therefore, we became intimately acquainted with each other. And I think the greatest tribute I can pay to the people of this time is respect for each other. Of that era, there was great respect. We had that in school, and that may have eroded to a certain extent. May have eroded.
I'm sure it has.
And
the modern society, meaning 1982, we have a great deal more mobility.
I can probably say this, that when I returned here in '54 to retire, I was somewhat chagrined at the lack of acceptance or cordiality that the people showed. Now, Jag Wetzel, who was my age, and we traveled together, he told me before he moved to Arizona, he said, "Ira, never go back to Beavertown. They won't accept you." And I think I can say that I've been accepted, but it took quite a few years. Quite a few years.
Well, you certainly are not a man of. You're a very distinguished gentleman, and yet you're not a haughty man, because as we discussed earlier, and we haven't not yet indicated to our audience, you have a doctorate from the University of Pittsburgh. Yet you do not choose to be referred to as doctor.
I don't choose to have it used at all.
And you want to be part of the community. You were a Sunday school teacher, I know, for very many years.
62 years.
And you've done everything in your power to just be another man in the community, except, of course, for the obvious educational attainments, which you don't brag about or do anything. But didn't you run for political office at one time?
Oh, one time, I believe it was around 24, 25. They had no candidate on the Democratic ticket for
U.S. Congressman?
For the legislator.
Legislator of
I never put
Pennsylvania.
on a campaign. I didn't spend a nickel.
And as a result, you didn't win the
No,
election.
Not on the Democratic ticket.
Not in Snyder County.
No.
Yeah, well, but...
No, I didn't. I knew that, but some fellows took out a petition and filed it, but I never...
I really understand your situation there.
It was a hopeless case.
Yeah, well, I can understand
Well,
that. Well, listen, we're going to knock off this particular interview because of the lateness of the hour.
Yeah,
Not because we're not interested in many more things, but perhaps we don't want to saturate our audience and nor ourselves. So, on behalf of the Historical Society, we're going to present you with a little booklet and our gratitude for coming down this evening.
Thank you very much.
So hopefully future generations will have an opportunity to sit where I'm sitting by way of this television program and have the opportunity to talk with Mr. Ira Gross. Again, thank you very much, sir, for your...
Thank you.